So Ubisoft revenue declines 31.4%. They just announced that. And the worst thing to add on to it is that they double down on open world and live service games, which is hilarious because that's what all these publishers are trying to do. And they think that that's a reassuring call to tell your investors that you're doubling down on something that you don't really understand, which is unfortunate because all these companies are doing it. All these companies are trying to say the right things to the investors, but the players know what's going on. The players understand that when you build a live service game, you can't just make one exist out of nothing and that it's guaranteed success in any way or that it's guaranteed a return in any way. The problem that I see that I'm guessing is that a lot of these things work on the mobile front. Mobile front, you often just make a game that's just good enough that appeals to the right thing in your brain, and you just kind of work with that, and then you can monetize like the small group of people that are dedicated fully into that. But I think when you take that into the hardcore gamer side, the core gamer side, the people who have been doing this for a while, we see that stuff from a mile away. It's really easy to see when we are being milked and we aren't getting any value in return. And the thing with these live service games, especially, is that often a lot of the best ones come from a grassroots thing, come from an experiment, come from something that didn't intend to be what it is. But it blew up on authenticity, a good experience, and a game that people wanted to play. And then after that happens is when the live service part gets added onto it even further and expanded because over time they realize they can support it more. You see it happen with all the Valve games that are service games that have evergreen, long roads, all focusing on really complex games, high skill ceiling, community involvement, and they kind of took that and ran with it or bought out the companies that made them and made their own thing of it or hired the right people that make those games. You can't pull an idea out of nothing and get a bunch of random designers to be like, well, you're going to make a service game and you're going to make it successful. Because it feels like the people that end up doing it aren't the people that are playing these service games. They're making a weird thing that kind of feels like a service game, but you're not really sure what's going on. The whole vibe of everything that they create, and oftentimes I say this joke a lot, it seems like a step parent trying to buy your love. And they're trying to be the perfect step parent with all their money, and they're trying to give you what you need. They ask you what you want, right? And they think that maybe if they give you everything that you listed, you'd be able to love them, essentially. But what really happens is that you still like your biological parent more and all their imperfections and all their kind of alcoholism. This analogy might be running too long here, but do you get what I mean? It seems like all the games that I actually want to play are messy, janky, imperfect, complicated things with many systems and a lot of things going on in them where they actually just try. They actually try to do something new. It might not be perfect in execution. It might not be completely polished, but it's authentic because it's what they want to do. It's who they are. It's the identity of that game feels so strong and so unique and layers on each time they make a new iteration that you can't help but play it. I look at stuff like Monster Hunter Wilds, which just had a beta that I tried last night. That game is still the same game from way back when, but each game they fold in a new layer of something that makes it either more accessible while at the same time adding complexity that makes it even more fun. And they just keep making this insane stew pot. It's the same stew that they add another ingredient to each time. And it's just something that you don't get from these AAA games. These AAA games oftentimes now want to be the frickin' McDonald's, right? They want to science out what is exactly fun about something and try to sell it to you for something that's probably too much. And you want that weird, artisan, home cooked meal that's been lovingly crafted with 15 years of experience for you to then eat this and be like, wow, this sounds like you really figured out what this was. And you go back for that soup, that stew every time. And you're like, did you do something new to this? Am I tasting a new herb in here? Am I tasting a new variety, a new cheese, a new kind of pasta? You're changing things up a little, but it's still stew. It's still that same stew. But each time they add a bit of a new layer to it, and it makes you even appreciate it even more because somehow they took the same formula over and over again and they added something to it, changed it, increased the quality of life some kind of way, and it's not reinventing the wheel. It's making the same wheel, but for some reason, somehow, it works in all its clunkiness, its jankiness, its not totally focus tested out of things. It's a core gameplay focus They know what works. They keep their core identity, where a lot of AAA games end up trying to make games for every single person. And when you're trying to appeal to every single person, for some reason, what always happens is that you appeal to nobody, or you appeal to a entity that feels like it's nothing. It's like, who is this game player that will play every single one of your games? It's not real. And I think other companies are aware of that. And if you take companies that do that, that are doing that very well, like Nintendo, they don't even do that. They kind of understand that there are some games that some players will really gravitate to, and there are some games that we know aren't really going to be huge bangers. And they're able to kind of invest and commit their money in many places and many pockets and across different genres and across different studios in a way just to make sure that they fill their library with a breadth of games that a lot of people can play. And then once they have that, they still have these bangers in here that still make that huge return, sprinkled in with a lot of stuff that maybe just breaks even. You got your Mario tennises. Are a lot of people playing that? I don't really know. You got your like Super Mario RPGs, the little like Mario and Luigi games. Are a lot of people playing those? I don't think so. Are a lot of people playing the new Paper Marios? I don't think so. But I think they sell enough to cover development costs and to add to the library, to the first partiness of all of Nintendo's stuff. But these publishers don't really want to do that. These publishers want to double down on the live service games that's giving them the most return without thinking of investing on other things that could fill in those holes. Because when you used to think of old AAA games, like old Ubisoft titles, old EA Games titles, they had that breadth. They had that, like, they got your racing game, they got your sports game, they got your hockey game, they got a bunch of single player games. They would try stuff, Army of Two at a co-op. You got your Assassin's Creeds, you got your Prince of Persia's. It was a good mix, right? But now they can only commit, because games are so expensive, to only doing a few every year. And if those don't hit, and if those appeal to too big of an audience without focusing on anything, which they're all doing, what you end up having instead is 4 games that don't do really well at all because they weren't really interesting to anyone specifically. And then now you got these companies are announcing that the revenues aren't as high and that the diminishing returns is happening really quick. And maybe it's just right time, right place. I don't know how much of this is people coming out of COVID being like, well, now that we're recovered, we can do other things now. We can get out of here and not play games all the time, since these games aren't really getting me. And there's other games, other places on Steam. Bunch of indie studios are floating up because the people that are making the games also feel it. They're not special. They're not unique into feeling this too. That they feel like their creativity is stifled because they're forced to make Call of Duty 26. And maybe they don't want to make Call of Duty 26. So that's where you're at now. Got a lot of companies kind of losing their identity in a lot of ways. Losing their identity in ways that you don't really understand. And in terms of filling that hole, it seems like Asian companies are filling that hole. Asian companies are doing very good at making the games that gamers actually want to play. And they're shameless about it. Whether you like it or not, it seems like all their characters are way more attractive. Does that appeal? I don't know. It could. I notice it. I notice when they're making a new character that looks really attractive, I see something there. I'm like, I feel like I haven't seen just like a cool, hot character in a while. And it's nice to see again. It's weird. And I hate that I can't even say that without feeling somebody somewhere online being like, well, you're nah. But that's the truth. That those games probably sell really well because they're doing what they want to do and they're making what they want to make and what they like to their tastes. And they're just hoping that you get it. And I think as game players, we need to do that more. I found way more enjoyment in games when I started thinking about what this game was designed to do and what is it, the experience that it's trying to get me to have, instead of walking into every game expecting it to appease me like it's some theme park. Like we've gotten into this mindset where the game does all the work for me. I don't have to put anything to it to get the enjoyment out of it. And therefore, when I walk in, I should be treated like a god in this game, which I don't agree with. I think there are way more interesting things that happen in games when you have to meet the game halfway, when you have to meet its complexities and weirdness halfway, when the menu isn't perfect, but it's got so many layers to it that make it fun and interesting and give you interesting choices throughout the entire time that you're playing. So that's where my brain is now. I don't know what to do about this. I don't have a really good solution for these AAA publishers. I think over time they might figure it out, because if they don't figure it out, at some point they will just die. And we need good, healthy AAA competition. We need high investment that these companies have on these games. And the job market itself for games needs to have that there too. At least that's what I think. I'm still looking forward to the new Assassin's Creed game because I'm kind of broken. Those have been guilty pleasure games. And when I look at gameplay of that, despite what all the discourse is about it being bad, I still see a game that's actually pretty fun. I still see a game that's actually pretty simple and clean. It's kind of along the same wavelength to me as Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy to me was good, clean fun in a world that wasn't ever really done right like that. I found it really fun to explore Hogwarts. I liked being in that world. The music made me feel like I was really immersed in it. That's the kind of experience I want from AAA. It's clean, simple fun. If you're going to nail that theme park thing, man, you go full immersion, you go full experience, and you commit to that. But yeah, just a ramble off of Ubisoft revenues declining and hearing that EA has lowered their projections for the year fiscally. It's worrying stuff, and it's frustrating to watch them do the same thing over and over again. Anytime you see a new service games from these publishers, it's frustrating because the vibe you get is that they don't get it and that they're just waiting for it to fail continuously. Anyway, that's all I got today. Just a ramble on these companies not doing great. See ya.